early 1970s. The ring didn't look special when the lights weren't aimed at it. Just canvas stretched tight, ropes stalled by years of hands leaning into them, a faint smell of sweat and chalk that never quite leaves a place built for impact. But history doesn't ask permission from furniture. It chooses moments. And on that night, the moment arrived quietly, carried in on confidence and curiosity rather than applause. Muhammad Ali had finished a light round, light by his standards, fast enough to remind everyone why time seemed to bend around him. He bounced once, smiled at someone ringside, and spoke with that familiar mix of certainty and humor that made truth sound like entertainment. He said no one could touch him when he decided to move. He didn't say it to provoke. He said it because it had been true for a very long time. The invitation wasn't formal. It didn't come with contracts or cameras. It came with proximity. Bruce Lee was there to observe, as he often was, studying movement the way some people study language. Bruce believed rings and dojos revealed what books hid, how bodies decide before minds speak, how rhythm announces intention, how confidence leaks through the feet. He had immense respect for Ali. He studied him obsessively, frame by frame, fascinated by how lightness could be weaponized without looking like force. Bruce heard Ali's words and smiled, not to challenge them, but to test their edges. He waited for the room to breathe, for the sound of gloves being set aside, for the small opening that appears when certainty relaxes its shoulders. Then he stepped closer, close enough to be heard without raising his voice, and said something that sounded simple and therefore dangerous. He said, "Hit me." The ring went quiet in the way rooms do when curiosity outruns expectation. People assumed Bruce was joking. Some smiled, some frowned. Ali turned, eyes bright, amused. He asked Bruce if he was serious. Bruce nodded. He said he didn't mean full power. He said he wanted timing. He wanted truth. Ali laughed, a quick flash of teeth and confidence. He said 5 seconds was all it ever took. Bruce nodded again. He said 5 seconds was plenty. They didn't square up like opponents. That mattered. There was no circling, no testing of range the way boxers do. Bruce stepped inside the ring with the calm of someone entering a classroom rather than a contest. He stood relaxed, hands low, posture unassuming, feet placed as if he were listening to the floor rather than preparing to spring. Ali bounced once, twice, light as ever, shoulders loose, eyes alive. He wasn't insulted. He was entertained. He feinted out of habit, a dancer checking the floor, then committed to a straight punch pulled just enough to be responsible, but fast enough to be honest. Bruce wasn't there. The absence arrived first. The glove cut through air that had already decided to be elsewhere, and before Ali's weight could settle behind the punch, Bruce had moved not away but earlier. He didn't slip in the way Ali expected. He stepped off the line before the line finished forming. The movement was small, economical, almost indifferent. Almost. Ali blinked, smiled wider, and shook his head once as if to say luck. He threw again, faster this time, rhythm adjusted, intent sharpened. Bruce moved earlier again, not faster, and once more wasn't where the punch expected him to be. There was no scramble, no flinch, just a clean removal of target. 5 seconds passed. Ali stopped bouncing, not angry, not threatened, focused in a way that stripped the showmanship away. He asked Bruce what he was doing. Bruce answered simply. He said he wasn't dodging punches. He was leaving before the aim finished forming. He said reaction is always late. Interception arrives early enough to make reaction unnecessary. Ali leaned against the ropes, thoughtful now. He asked Bruce to explain without poetry. Bruce obliged. He said the body telegraphs before it moves. The feet decide before the hands. The breath commits before the shoulder turns. If you watch the decision, not the punch, you don't need speed. You need timing. Ali nodded slowly. Great fighters recognize shared language even when the accent differs. He asked Bruce to do it again, this time against a combination. Bruce agreed. Ali threw light but fast, a sequence meant to overwhelm rhythm. Bruce moved minimally, always earlier, never fully committed to the wrong place. He didn't evade every line perfectly, but he was never where Ali wanted him to be when it mattered. That mattered more than clean misses. Ali stopped again. 5 seconds had passed. He laughed, but the laugh had changed. It wasn't dismissal, It was discovery. He said, "That ain't dodging, that's disappearing." Bruce smiled. He said disappearing is easier than running when you leave before you're expected to arrive. The ring exhaled. What made the moment historic wasn't that Ali missed. Champions miss all the time. It was how little Bruce had done to make it happen. No contest of speed, no test of power, just timing confronting certainty. Ali didn't retract his earlier words. He refined them. He said no one could dodge him if they waited for him. That qualifier mattered. He asked Bruce to sit with him. They talked, not about winning, but about rhythm, about how crowds affect timing, about how expectation becomes a trap when believed too fully. Bruce spoke about interception. Ali spoke about cadence. They were mapping the same terrain from different elevations. Bruce said the greatest fighters aren't hard to hit because they're fast. They're hard to hit because they leave early. Ali nodded, eyes distant, processing. He said speed without timing is noise. Timing is when speed arrives early enough to matter. The boast from earlier didn't return. People around the ring tried to turn the moment into a verdict. Who won? Who would win? What rules? Both men refused the frame. Bruce said rules define questions. Ali said questions define answers. They agreed that mixing domains loudly often answers the wrong thing. The moment traveled quietly after that, as all durable lessons do, not as a challenge answered, but as a principle exposed. Ali's training shifted subtly. He built silence into exchanges, letting opponents commit before punishing the commitment. He shortened some steps, lengthened others. He preserved spectacle, but added selectivity. Viewers felt inevitability without knowing why. Bruce returned to his own work, satisfied that clarity had landed. He didn't seek credit. He believed influence should be anonymous to remain useful. If people practice a principle because it works, it survives fashion. Years later, the story would be told badly by some, embellished by others. They needed a fight. They needed a score. The truth didn't provide one. It provided a lens. In that lens, speed was reframed as arrival time and dodging as departure choice. 5 seconds didn't diminish a champion. They widened mastery. And that widening, quiet, precise, unclaimed is what history remembers when noise fades. The history didn't announce itself with headlines the next morning. It worked its way into bodies first, the only place real lessons ever survive. Muhammad Ali felt it when he laced his shoes later that night and noticed his feet wanted to leave sooner than usual, as if they had learned a new clock. He hadn't decided to change anything. The change had already arrived. That was the strange part. The mind hadn't argued. The body had accepted. Ali had always trusted rhythm. Rhythm was his shield and his invitation. He used it to draw punches the way a tide draws boats, then stepped aside and let momentum do the work. What the 5 seconds in the ring with Bruce Lee added wasn't a contradiction of rhythm, but a refinement of it. Rhythm, Bruce had shown, is only dangerous if the opponent agrees to dance. Interception refuses the invitation entirely. Ali didn't abandon what made him great. He sharpened it. In the weeks that followed, his sparring partners noticed something that was difficult to describe without sounding mystical. Ali felt calmer, not slower, not cautious calmer. His movement still flowed, still dazzled, but there were moments when he seemed to vanish between beats. Fighters threw where he had been planning to be, not where he was. That difference lived in the space before motion, not in motion itself. Ali began speaking about evasion in a new way. He said dodging isn't about being quicker than the punch. It's about leaving before the punch knows where to go. People laughed at the poetry. Fighters understood the instruction. It was describing the same truth Bruce had demonstrated. Reaction is an admission that you arrived late. This reframing altered how Ali managed distance. He shortened his presence in danger zones, stepped out before exchanges matured, and re-entered on his own timing. The crowd still saw the dance, but the dance now hit a quieter math. Ali wasn't just making opponents miss. He was removing their options before they felt them disappear. Coaches noticed fewer wasted feints. When Ali feinted now, it meant something. It wasn't flourish. It was data collection. He'd show a shoulder, read the response, then choose whether to leave or invite. The choice arrived earlier than it used to. Earlier choices cost less energy and yield more control. That control mattered late in fights. Ali's longevity had always depended on intelligence as much as courage. The interception idea fed directly into that intelligence. By leaving earlier, he absorbed fewer shots. By letting opponents commit first, he conserved breath. Precision replaced excess. Excess is where careers go to shorten. The ring moment also softened a popular misunderstanding. Fans love to imagine a definitive contest between domains boxing versus martial arts, speed versus technique, power versus timing. Both men refused that frame. They understood that contests across domains answer questions loudly and incorrectly. The useful answers arrive quietly, within context. Ali articulated this later with disarming clarity. He said a king is greatest in his kingdom, but wise enough to know where the borders end. That wasn't humility. It was sovereignty. He knew exactly where his mastery ruled and where curiosity should replace certainty. Bruce's philosophy underpinned this sovereignty. He believed mastery isn't claiming universality, it's understanding limits without letting them limit learning. He taught that the moment you stop learning from adjacent disciplines, your own begins to fossilize. Ali didn't fossilize, he evolved. The story spread through gyms unevenly, as good ideas always do. Some told it as a parlor trick. Others dismissed it as theatrics. Serious practitioners took something else from it. They began training earlier reads. They watched hips instead of gloves. They listened to breath. They practiced leaving lines before punches matured. The word interception entered conversations, sometimes clumsily, sometimes accurately. Language changed attention. Attention changed results. Ali's own language helped the idea travel. He said speed without timing is noise. He said timing is speed that arrives before it's expected. Those phrases sounded like poetry but functioned as drills. Fighters tried them and felt the difference. Feeling convinces faster than argument. The moment's durability also came from restraint. Bruce hadn't countered. He hadn't humiliated. He had stopped at understanding. That restraint framed the exchange as information rather than hierarchy. Information invites curiosity. Hierarchy invites resistance. Curiosity won. Ali respected that restraint deeply. He had spent a lifetime turning bravado into performance. He recognized when bravado wasn't being courted. That recognition freed him to listen without losing face. Champions rarely get that freedom. It was offered to him without strings. The gym where it happened changed subtly. Trainers began inserting pauses into drills, teaching fighters to read before reacting. They emphasized exits as much as entries. They talked about owning space without occupying it. Injuries decreased. Outcomes improved. The floor always the final arbiter proved. Bruce would have liked that. He believed floors don't lie. Years later, as myths thickened and timelines blurred, the core lesson remained intact wherever it mattered. Dodging is late. Leaving is early. Speed is arrival time. Power is conditional. Control is choice. Ali's performances continued to dazzle, but the dazzle rested on deeper footing. He still talked. He still danced. He still made crowds laugh. But there were moments brief, decisive when he stopped performing for the audience and performed for reality. Opponents felt those moments acutely. They didn't always know why exchanges ended when they did. They only knew they had arrived late. Bruce returned to his own work, satisfied that a principle had landed where it could grow. He didn't collect credit. He believed influence should be anonymous to remain useful. If a principle works, bodies will keep it alive long after names fade. The final measure of the moment wasn't applause or retelling. It was behavior. Ali moved earlier. Fighters trained differently. Coaches adjusted language. The discipline shifted by degrees, the only way it ever truly shifts. 5 seconds did not rewrite history. They edited it. They removed a delay. They widened a window. They showed that even at the highest level, there is an earlier place to stand, if you're willing to leave what feels safe before it asks you to. That is why the moment made history, not because one man dared another to strike, but because both allowed a deeper truth to arrive without defending themselves against it. 5 seconds were enough.